showed up today and it's just chaos. There's a huge line to get toilet paper.
What's the hardest thing to find right now?
I mean, you got everybody and their brother going and buying all the toilet paper.
Yes.
It's pretty bad. My 62-year-old dad had to come to my house yesterday and get 10 rolls of it because can't buy it at the store.
It's not just that stores ran out of toilet paper early on in this pandemic. It's that there's been a total lack of supply, which seems to persist. The shelf is basically always empty. Now, I had understood all this as an irrational hoarding of toilet paper. But journalist Will Oremus actually took the time to report out the toilet paper supply chain story in his recent piece, What's Everyone Getting Wrong About the Toilet Paper Shortage? And it turns out it is actually perfectly rational, and there is a perfectly good reason and explanation for it. And joining me now is Will Oremus, senior writer for Medium. Will, I learned a lot from your piece. So I had seen all these memes, right, about these jokes being like, the symptoms aren't gastrointestinal, like there's no reason for people to be stocking up on this. This was all panic buying. Why is that not the case? Why is that not the reason that we have these shortages?
Well, certainly it started with some hoarding and panic buying when people first realized they were going to be home for a while. People went out to the stores, bought toilet paper so they'd have enough to get by. But the shortages in stores have persisted long past when they should have stopped. If you go to the store now, you'll see they only let you buy one package at a time, and yet they still can't keep toilet paper in stock. So I went looking for why this could be, talked to people in the toilet paper industry, and found a sort of fascinating answer, one that starts with the realization that, yes, everybody's using the bathroom the same amount, presumably, under the time of coronavirus as we were before, but we're using it in a different place. We're now using it at home around the clock. Those 75% of Americans or so who are staying at home all day, they use toilet paper that you buy from the store every time they go to the bathroom. It used to be that people were using toilet paper in schools, at their office buildings, in restaurants and hotels and airports. Now all that toilet paper isn't getting used.
And so you've got basically two places that people can use the bathroom, right? At home and out at the various places, their offices, their college dorms, the airport bathrooms. And what you sort of discovered, which is fascinating, is that they're just not the same market. In fact, there's basically two markets that have nothing to do with each other to service those two kinds of toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what I found that was fascinating. So the toilet paper you buy in the store, it's pretty nice, right? It's soft, it's plush, it's usually embossed somehow. A toilet paper company told me it's actually 100% virgin fiber, which kind of blew my mind. The toilet paper that you get at work or at an airport, that stuff is thin, it's single ply, it's usually made from recycled sheets. It's not only is it a different product, but it's made by different companies. It's made on different assembly lines in different mills. And so the companies that are supplying all the toilet paper to the workplaces that are closed around the country, they aren't the same ones that have the relationship with Kroger or Safeway or Rite Aid or CVS to get those toilet papers, those rolls, those 6-packs into stores and back on the shelves. So we've presumably got some huge glut of that commercial toilet paper lying around, and all the companies are scrambling to fill the demand for the toilet paper that you usually buy at the store.
Which is just fascinating. So there's this completely separate supply chain for basically industrial or commercial and residential use. They don't have anything to do with each other. They're actually different products. They have different vendor relationships. They're different companies, it turns out. And when people are staying home, there's a 40% increase in their use of it at home, and presumably some massive commercial glut that's sitting there on pallets that was supposed to be delivered to things like dorms and airports that's not going out the door.
Yeah, that's right. And so you would think that maybe they could just reallocate some of that supply, right? Maybe retool their mills a little bit, start cranking out more of the retail stuff. But the other factor here is that the toilet paper industry is kind of unique. Toilet paper is really bulky, but it's not worth much money. So there's very little excess supply. Nobody's going to be storing a bunch of extra toilet paper in warehouses because it's not cost effective. And their assembly lines were already working at full capacity to meet the very steady, predictable demand. So if that demand shifts even a little bit, they don't have room to change. And now if they spend a bunch of money to tool up for the retail market and start cranking out more of that, then when, knock on wood, eventually things go back to normal, people start going out in the world again and using the bathroom somewhere other than home, then they'll be in trouble again because they will have changed their whole operation and they'll be out of step with demand. Right.
So they don't want to fix, they don't want any sort of fixed capital investment for over the long term for what is going to be hopefully a temporary situation, A. And B, this extremely bulky thing that takes up a ton of space is worth essentially nothing. And so there's nothing worse for your spreadsheet if you're a business than holding on to a ton of worthless inventory. So all of it is basically like a razor thin just-in-time operation that can't scale up.
You got it. That's exactly right. And there are other products, by the way, that are going to have similar dynamics. They're not all the same as toilet paper, and each one has its own story. But for instance, bananas, there are the bananas that go to the commercial market, to restaurants and to workplaces. They're petite bananas. They're little and they come loose, whereas the bananas that go to grocery stores are big and beautiful and come in big bunches of 6. They're separate supply chains again. So people are trying to figure that out. You know, there's beer going into kegs for the restaurant market versus going into bottles for the home market. And so I would expect to see more sort of sporadic shortages as this type of problem works its way through all kinds of different sectors.
All right, Will Oremus. Great piece of reporting. Really like a fantastic bit of good illuminating journalism. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.